So thanks a lot, Jeffrey. And I really want to extend my thanks to KnowledgeAdvisors, starting with the time when the session back at the CLO Symposium. They really kind of brought a fresh charge to our measurement approach, something that we've cared a lot about for many years at Accenture. But really, the last 2 years of working with them has been a journey of refreshing our overall learning strategy, starting with learning. But then most recently, we expanded out and started thinking about what does that mean to talent development as well. By way of introduction, I've been with Accenture now this will be my 20th year, something that really shocks me when I reflect on it. And I'm basically a learning person. I kind of grew up in the instructional design space, came to work at Accenture as a designer, and have kept moving upstream. So when we got into like learning, e-learning and the different kind of learning, more advanced learning technologies, I drove those strategies. And then have continued to kind of move upstream. And so now I'm responsible for our overall learning strategy at Accenture. And that really involves, what's our competency strategy, what's our curriculum strategy, what are we doing for innovations and how people learn. So, learning in the classroom, of course, learning virtually, learning social learning, mobile learning, all that stuff, and innovating around that. Measurement's obviously a big part of that. And about, I guess it's now 4 years or so, Accenture, HR, and capability development is our learning organization. We went through a transformation, overall HR transformation, and as part of that, we expanded really. We started embracing the concept of talent development as a concept that was much broader than learning, and I was a part of that. I really helped to drive what we meant by talent development and what was our talent development strategy going to be. We're a big, complicated organization, and I'll talk more about that. But it's been a very exciting journey. And what I'm going to share with you today is our latest version of our talent development strategy, with a special focus on how we're measuring it. How we're going to go, how we are currently and will be looking at measurement. And then I'm going to finish off with what we're doing around analytics, because of course this is an analytics conference, and I think we're doing some pretty cool stuff with analytics. I think we're, like many of us, we're at the early stages, but we've had some really significant wins and impacts in the learning space in particular with analytics, and I want to share that. So with no further ado, Accenture, if you don't know about Accenture, we're a large management consulting, technology, and outsourcing company. We have a lot of people, 275,000 all over the world. We're a public company, close to $30 billion in revenue. And our overall mission is to deliver innovations that help our clients become high-performance businesses and governments. That's something that inspires us all. And but really, a month or so ago, there was Jimmy Kimmel actually ran a spot that I think communicates our mission better than anything else. So can we run that?
Building applications for today's highly distributed network computing environments can be a challenge. It's easy to f things up, and when things get up, Accenture can help you get them un. Our proprietary algorithms are capable of even the most hopelessly up systems, quickly and efficiently, getting you back to where you should have been before you everything up in the first place. Accenture, getting un.
So that'll wake you all up. And I have to say, marketing hates that video. Everyone else loves it because now they can sort of explain to their friends what we do. So now, another way to say that is to say that on our best day, we start with, we're really good at kind of spreading our best practices around and using them from, we're a global organization, and not the way some professional services organizations are global. We don't really organize primarily by geography. We have global businesses that operate globally with people that work for, we serve global clients. Some of our top clients have the same kind of human resources profile that we do. So, the things that they value about us is we have great people. We have deep expertise in a kind of a dizzying array of areas of expertise. We have everything from analytics experts to supply chain experts to strategists to deep technologists, people that can fix the healthcare.gov site. or keep it running, now that it's fixed. It's one thing to have experts and innovation, but I think we're also known quite well for delivering at scale all around the world. And so, no matter what, we're going to get it done. And that's quite a thing that our clients value for us. How does that translates into us really being a talent company. Essentially, our value is the talent that we have and that we grow and that we develop. So let me just say a few words about the challenge that we have with developing our talent. On any given day, we're trying to kind of balance these three dimensions about the people that we bring to our clients. On the one hand, we need to bring to our clients these deep specialists, the experts, people that are really just great at innovating a problem, the deepest problem. At the same time, on the left-hand side, we have to balance sort of the running the business part. We're keeping our people chargeable, having methods that are industrialized so that we can do things the same way all around the world and have tens of thousands of people really following standard procedures. Also with the ability to innovate and shift around. And then on the right-hand side, we're balancing the culture, the notion that we really have to underlie our company, our ever-growing, ever more diverse company with a common culture, with core skills, so that when we say there's an Accenture way, it actually means something. And you can kind of rely on a base set of competencies and characteristics about our people. Balancing those three things on a day-to-day, year-to-year is not an easy thing, and it really requires agility. It requires the ability to do our best to forecast and kind of get smart about where people need to be, what kind of people need to be where in the business, and how do we make sure that they have the right skills, the right cost profile, they're in the right place, et cetera. So when we look at talent development, this is kind of our one-pager to say this is how we structure ourselves and how we define talent development. Overall, this is really, I could say that the wheel on the left-hand side is overall HR and kind of the processes and the areas that we do to drive talent. Like many other HR organizations, we define what talent we need. We discover it through acquisition, through recruiting and so forth. Developing talent is kind of our sweet spot, and then we deploy it. And I would say one of our key capabilities, Accenture's, is deploying talent. We have a talent supply chain organization that operates much like a physical supply chain organization would work like. They forecast needs at a very granular level. They manage scheduling and so forth, and their job is to make sure that people don't stay on the bench idle for very long at all and try to keep people busy. That's that chargeability bit. For talent development, you can see the way we're organized here. We have what we call disciplines. Those are the four things that are in the middle, and you think about career transitions. That's really everything from onboarding through internal transitions to exiting. And we actually, I'll go into depth about what we mean by career transitions, but it's really looking at the whole life cycle of people. Capability development, that's my home base, and really we're there all about creating in our people market-relevant capabilities or market-relevant skills. Performance management, many people's favorite topic. How do we measure people? How do we help encourage and raise the aggregate performance of our company through individual and team-based performance management? And then career management. The more diverse we get, the more important it is to be able to provide some clarity for people about the different sorts of career options they have and make sure they've got the support they need to kind of chart their own path within Accenture. There are a lot of different directions you can go now. Underlying that, you've got strategy and what we call GU, which is geography, business interlock. And so those two functions really kind of guide the overall talent development story. Our talent development strategy, which I'm sharing with you, really comes out of that group, and they drive innovation across talent development. The GU, business interlock. Business interlock is a term we use for kind of the interface with the different parts of our business. And what I didn't bring was a slide that showed how Accenture is organized, but essentially it's a three and a half dimension matrix, right? So we have business units that are global. We go to market actually by industry, what we call operating groups. So, products companies and governments and financial services, et cetera. That matrix then has a lot of different cells in it and a lot of different groups of people that are managed by different business leaders in HR. And so our business interlock people are responsible for working across the different geographies and making sure that that all the talent needs are understood, and that the solutions that talent development has put together, whether it's websites or training courses or processes or tools, are used in a way that meet the needs of that particular geography. In the same way, we've got technology and employee experience sort of rounding that out. Technology, we've got a lot of applications that support talent development. We've got a career development planning tool. We've got a performance management tool. We've got a lot of websites that provide resources and content for people that are supervisors and career counselors and so forth. And then employee experience, I'm going to say more about that, really, but it's the idea of having a group that's focused on the end-to-end experience for our employees. I don't know if this is common in your companies, but our HR organization was, kind of ran in silos, and many of our processes had different disconnected owners. And what that results in is a lot of different tools and a lot of different websites that are all intended to, serve their one little purpose. This is our talent development strategy was really our first attempt at looking at it from an employee's perspective and saying, you know what, rather than giving them 12 different websites, can we think about the whole experience and start to think about how to integrate that for them? Bracketing this, of course, is the way is what we, how we interface with the business. What kind of inputs do we look for? And we work very. I think we're pretty set up, pretty aligned with the business across our HR organization. We work with our business partners and our business leaders based on their strategies. And again, Accenture is a complex company. I think at last count we had about 75 unique different entities, what we would call a business entity. These are points of the business that are actually driving their own P&L, and they have their own objectives. We have learning and talent development folks that will align with them, and based on those priorities, come up with strategies that are unique to that business. So when we talk about measurement and we talk about business outcomes, it's very difficult to talk about that at a global level other than having some sort of aggregate numbers. What really matters is the business outcomes that a particular line of business cares about. For instance, one business unit in India was focused very much on driving down cost to serve. While that's nice, I think there's other parts of the business that are more worried about pricing for their people, and can we command a pricing premium in the marketplace. So there's a wide variety of business outcomes that we're trying to drive with our talent. All right. I won't drain this, there's a lot here, but just when we go about a strategy refresh, what we try to do is do a fair amount of research, both externally and internally, to say what's changed. What are the things that are on our radar that should be on our radar that we take into account? And so this is just a list of, knowing that our business context is we're going to grow. We're now at 275, 280,000. We're going to get to 350,000 pretty quickly. And, it's not inconceivable that we would have 400,000 or 500,000 people in our company in a couple of years. What do we need to be paying attention to? Externally, there are things like open learning, the democratization of content that we're seeing all across the learning industry. Very important trend. How practical is it? How scalable is it? These are all open questions. Brain science is important. Brains are important. But when we think about the motivations of people, I think we did a lot of deep dives with Daniel Pink's work on drive and what motivates humans, what motivates them beyond being paid. There's a lot about mastery and purpose and autonomy that we take to heart and we try to build into our talent development strategy. So those are just some examples of what is going on in the outside world that we need to take into account. And then internally, we listen to our people through a lot of different channels. And just to highlight some of these conversations, it's easy when our people are really busy and time pressed to do chargeable work to focus only on that. And if we don't stress the value and make sure that important career conversations are happening, people become disengaged. They think they're just being used, sort of, and they're going to be less engaged, and ultimately they'll leave. They'll be less productive. So we, as fluffy as it sounds, conversations, career conversations, supervisory performance conversations are really at the heart of what we need to do in talent development. And the path of least resistance is up there because what we found, we have an initiative that we're running now around internal, creating a career marketplace. What we found was that a lot of people were leaving Accenture and then maybe after a few years working at another company, coming back to Accenture. And the folks that would come back would tell us, it was a lot easier to find a job outside of Accenture than to find another position inside Accenture. And there are just a whole lot of cultural reasons and process reasons. But that's what path of least resistance means, is can we reduce the resistance and make it easier for people? We're such a diverse company now that it really is a shame if a person's career aspirations can't be met somewhere within the company. You can be everything from a consultant to a technologist to an operations person. There's tons of opportunities. And then lastly, building people developers. You'll see this a lot, so I won't drain it. So overall, this was in collaboration with the rest of our HR leadership and doing a whole lot of iteration. Our overall mission for talent development is to develop the world's best talent for our clients, ourselves, and each other. That sounds nice, doesn't it? What I really want to stress, though, is the idea that our strategy focuses on 3 different key stakeholder groups. And what I've found in doing strategy work is it's easy to have nice pictures and models, but really comes down to is what are the key stakeholder groups that we need to understand and to influence to make things work. And then, of course, people. I'll talk about employees for a moment here. Our goal for them is that they achieve their potential and create their best career stories. People developers is a key lever for us. And a people developer is I'll talk about this, but it's really anybody from a supervisor to a mentor. And then finally, our business leaders. There's a lot we can stress the employee experience all day long, but the business leaders themselves are challenged to play their part in developing talent. And so can we look at their experience as well and make it better? So let's look at the employee experience. And I don't know where Leah is from Granger, but I really, there you are. I was hoping you had something like this. So what we found, this is not a rocket scientist picture. This was just something that we were trying to make sense of all the IT applications we actually had. And some bright person in the room said, what if we just sort of mapped out all the steps from beginning to end that an employee goes through, from before they're even hired all the way to when they leave. And let's make a little map of what technology we have to support it. And that was the heart of our employee experience model here, which you can see starts with our recruits and our desire to kind of create first impressions that are lasting and that draw them in. We pay attention to the pre-joiner phase. In some of our high-growth geographies, it's not uncommon for people to accept a job and then not show up for work because they accepted a job somewhere else. We call that the renege rate. And so it was actually a challenge for us over the last couple of years, and we put together some solutions around that. New joiners, of course, we want to make sure that they're productive as soon as possible and they stay engaged. One of our challenges with new joiners is that they're coming from more and more diverse places. Back when I started with the company, 80%, 90% of our new joiners came from college campuses. They were very much the same kind of people. We've got more and more experienced hires. We're now acquiring companies at a greater pace, and so we've got people with all sorts of profiles coming in, which really makes the new joiner challenge even more important, but also difficult. This loop in the middle is, we call it continuous development, and really when you think about everything we do from career management and development planning and learning and competency assessment, that's really what's going on there. And most of people's talent development experience happens in that middle wheel there. And so what we've done is sort of stated overall aspirations for those areas. So when we're looking at systems or processes or even solutions that we're going to put in place, we're going to look and say how well does it support the imagine, the plan, the assess, and the develop. We know that people change roles. We want them to change roles, and so we have to pay attention to that process. That's part of the transitions discipline that we talked about. And then finally, a lot of people leave Accenture for very good reasons. And the interesting thing about leaving Accenture is it might not be very long at all until you're a client of ours. And so we either want to get you to help us recruit other people into Accenture, or we want you to be a valued client. That happens all over the place. And sometimes we're a very tough client. An Accenture person can be a really tough client. But we want to, they're part of the family. And so we have an active alumni network. We do things to kind of keep that network because ultimately the network is what we have. People developer is a huge priority for us in talent development and in learning. So what do we mean by that? First of all, people development is one of the three big characteristics of our leadership model. You know, when we think about a leader at Accenture, they're creating value, they're a business operator, and then they're a people developer. So we really do expect everyone in the company to have some kind of people development role. What does that really look like? Well, you're everything from a colleague who's providing some feedback and advice to a colleague. You're answering a question in our social media network. You could actually be, you know, we have faculty. I think it's over 80% of our faculty come from employees. We have very much a leaders teaching leaders model, and so, you know, it's a huge part of our culture to be teaching others, either on the job or in the classroom, on our, you know, newly active communities of practice and so forth. This notion of career counselor is important. Everybody at Accenture has a career counselor, and a career counselor is somebody who is able to, you know, without the burden and the complexity of being your supervisor in most cases, they can give you perspective about what are some options for you at Accenture. It'll help you interpret the feedback that you get from your supervisor or from various people. And they're really your counselor to help you chart your path, make sense of Accenture, and decide where you're going to go next. Really important role for us, and we spend a lot of time and money trying to enable career counselors. And then lastly, our business experience. And this is the newest element of it. I think we've been doing employee experience and people developers for a while. What we realize is HR can really make it tough on a business leader. You know, we all want to align with the business. We all want to be at the table. But we want to do it now we want to do it in a more integrated way because we can really make it tough for a business leader. So we've sort of thought through this from an overall HR perspective. What should the business leader's experience be? Starting with, you know, helping them frame a talent strategy and a plan based on their business. And for Accenture, what that might mean is for, you know, one of our business entities starts with their business goals and their growth goals, and it might turn out that we're going to need you know, a very quantifiable number of people that have a particular technology skill. You know, Workday is a very big technology now that a lot of clients want. So we actually had the challenge of growing our Workday skilled people, you know, by about 500% over the course of a year. That's what the business leader cares about. Now, how are we going to do that? And so working this process, you know, making sure that we had a way of either hiring new people with the right skills and making sure they were integrated right away, aligning their objectives, making sure that people are focused on the right things that align with the business outcomes, developing. So the leader's role in developing talent is, of course, supporting their role and taking training and so forth, but also making sure that they're learning on the job and giving them opportunities, giving them coaching feedback and so forth. So it's really thinking about through the business experience end to end. And really, I think it's most helpful for me to think about, you know, when it comes to measurement, we took each one of these types of experience, and these are the metrics globally that we're keeping track of. It's important to note that any one business unit or geography is going to have their own lens on this, and they might have some additional metrics that they care about, but this is like the global scorecard is based on these metrics. So if you can think about the employee experience first, and I've arranged them in a way that sort of matches the employee experience framework, starting with the renege rate. Do they show up for work? Do they stay? First-year attrition, first-year engagement. These are things that we survey and we keep track of. Has everyone been to the new joiner training? As obvious as that might seem, it's, you know, for a global company like this, it's not easy to track necessarily. And in some cases, there are legal requirements that, you know, that they go through the right processes. And we track speed to competency. At least for some of our groups, it matters that, you know, they're able to be, when they're chargeable, they've got the right skills. We've got a great online tool. I think right now we're over 50%, we're probably 55% of our people have a development plan. And what that means is they've actually talked with their career counselor about what are their career aspirations, short and long-term goals, what are some development actions that they can take, really using the learning resources that they've got available to them. It's not mandatory. A lot of our processes are mandatory, but when we rolled out the career development planning tool, we decided, let's just see what happens if we put it out there and don't require people to use it. And what we learned was it's a valuable tool on its own. And so, maybe to get it to 80 or 90%, we might have to do some, more motivation. But I think it's quite valuable to just let people use it. And the more they know about it, the more useful it's going to be. Then this percentage of employees who feel they get useful direction on learning. This is one question out of our employee engagement survey that we ask, and it really is something that I pay attention to as a learning person, because our curriculum and our learning resources can be very complicated for people, and I want to make sure that they're getting the right kind of advice and direction and able to narrow down exactly the right kind of learning activities for themselves. It's not an easy thing to do. And then we get into some of the training measures that you all are familiar with. Our delivery mix would be what percentage in the global classroom versus virtual classroom versus online, kind of traditional metrics. But our leadership cares about this because we've actually got a business case in place to kind of drive down cost for training, but also maintain quality. And so we're accountable at the COO level of the company for our progress on a business case around training delivery. Percentage of open roles posted internally, that's what I was mentioning earlier. It matters to us whether people are leaving or they're able to fill those positions. Right now, I think the percentage is relatively low. We're looking to increase that number. And then when they leave, the exit satisfaction, the kind of operational measures really about alumni. What's really important is the rehiring and the alumni referrals. Those are really the business outcomes that we can translate into sales or into reduced recruiting costs. Because when alumni recommend or refer an employee, then of course that keeps our recruiting costs down. Our people developer metrics are, have to do with how satisfied are people with their career counselors. Supervisor effectiveness is really measured. We're actually using our KnowledgeAdvisors tools and strategy to measure our supervisor program, which is fairly robust. We've got some training, some online resources, and some performance support. And we're actually rolling that out now, a 360, kind of multi-rater approach that spans out several months after they complete the training. So I'm really interested in how well this is working and circling that back into program effectiveness. It's such a linchpin for our talent development that we've got to get that right. And then on the business experience, so what metrics do our business people care about? It's a short list. Overdue demand may not be a familiar metric to you all, but in the professional services business, overdue demand means basically money on the table, revenue that's not being able to be earned because we can't fill the open role. The project team says, I need 5 people who can do XYZ technology or a project manager. And until I fill that seat, we're not able to earn that revenue. So it's a very key metric. Pipeline for key roles is similar to that. We're trying to grow the number of people who have deep industry strategy skills, for instance. We need to go from 5 to 25 in the next 2 years. And that's a complicated affair. There's some building, some buying, some apprenticeship programs, et cetera. It's an important metric that our business leaders care about. Proficiency. We've got a very rigorous, for our largest geography, India, and for our global delivery network, we've been, over the last 7 years, been doing a lot around proficiency measurement of competencies. And it's a very well-engineered system where annually we can actually look at where the gaps are in terms of proficiency and competencies, and to make some targeted investments in different technologies or different areas and make sure that we're meeting demand. So it's a question of seeing what is our proficiency against certain competencies and what's the demand going to be. It's that forecasting ability. Training penetration, I'm going to talk about in a minute. It's not as simple as just are people going to training, although that is an important thing. But when we look at what our analytics were able to do for us, it's really exciting. And then employee engagement. We're really blessed at Accenture that our leaders care about employee engagement. I think we've been using it for over 10 years. We went from kind of the satisfaction survey to really embracing the engagement model. And our leaders know that our people need to be engaged to be productive and for us to be successful. And we strive for that high performance level. I think we had exceeded the high performance level of engagement, but we still keep trying to push the bar up. Now, how am I doing on time? Jeff? Okay, I'm doing fine. I'm talking too fast, apparently. And so just to kind of round out the talent development strategy part, these are some guiding principles that we use mainly for our people, for our talent development professionals, to anchor back to things. So it's a way for us to kind of help motivate our teams, focus our own development for our own people. You know, what are we doing to make sure that we have strong business relationships for each of those 75 plus business entities? Do our people have the skills to talk business and not just be order takers per se? Are we designing differentiated solutions, or, you know, just the one-size-fits-all model for HR is just not very effective. And so what we have to do is understand the requirements and make sure that we're tailoring things to the need. Human-centered experiences. Human-centered design has been a big theme for us over the last couple of years. The design thinking, some of you may be familiar with that whole concept, and it's when we talk about the employee experience and the people developer experience and the business experience, we've got people that are really focused on understanding the different stakeholders, what are the pain points, and trying to work on better experiences for these people. And human-centered design is all about that. And then research and analytics. I think that's where I'll go next. So we actually have, organizationally, we've got an analytics practice, a human capital analytics practice. They work for clients, and they also work for HR. And it's been a great privilege for me to work with a team that's been pretty much dedicated to our own internal HR function for the last 2.5 years. Really sharp folks. And they come from backgrounds, obviously, big quantitative backgrounds. They come from banks and companies where they would do millions and millions of transactions and lots of data points. And now we pointed them at HR and said, what can you do to help us with HR? So just at a high level, they look at the standard data sources that we're all familiar with, demographics, some of the talent development metrics that I mentioned, rewards, productivity, and then things that you don't normally think about, you know, the travel, the contracts that we have with people, internal site footprints. So where are they really in the company? And then the unstructured data. These guys are really good at just finding all the data, you know, internally or externally, and that all kind of goes into their analytics. How are we using it? And so here's another view of the talent life cycle, and you can see some of the big, we're not doing all of this yet, but this is our aspiration, and you can see end to end where our analytics folks are taking things. We're looking at the planning and acquisition cycle and looking to, you know, really optimize what we're doing in recruiting. My space is more in the learning, and I'm going to talk for a minute about talking a little bit about what we're doing with analytics and the learning space. And this is another slide. Really, just what I've found in working with the analytics folks is they're really good with the numbers, and the partnership with HR is really helping to frame up the right kind of questions. And that it's not always, we don't always start with the right questions. We start with exploratory, you know, what could the numbers tell us? And then we iterate on what are some hypotheses that might explain this. And, you know, our analytics guys started off with not a lot of knowledge about the learning domain. And so we would iterate and I'd say, well, you know, that could be a function of, you know, who's going to what training or why they're going and so forth. And so we've iterated a lot on the research questions that our analytics can tell us. And so, you know, my experience is really focusing on the research questions, and the analytics questions is key. On the learning space here, are people going to the right training? Are we investing in the right skills? Those are fairly common questions, but I think our analytics are going to help us be more precise and be able to make decisions more quickly than we do today. I'm going to blow past the build here. So some of the benefits that we're seeing right now, I'll speak more about the learning in a minute here, but, you know, at the acquisition phase, by doing a better job of understanding and forecasting demand, we're able to reduce that overdue demand. And so really we can be more precise about where people, what skills we need in particular places. And it's really a supply chain problem at that point. Can we reduce the seat time for people and drive real economic value here, millions of dollars? The recruiting one is quite interesting too. We're getting smarter about where to find candidates, what skills are going to take how long to find in the marketplace, and how to locate them. The learning effectiveness one, I'm going to tell that story actually. Our analytics guys, when they first started working with HR, they wanted to look at, I guess our HR leaders were really interested in, can we demonstrate economic impact for some of the people factors that we've got? And the approach they took was to really look at a wide variety of people variables, things like employee engagement, vacation time, the size of the pyramid, the makeup of the team in terms of gender or career level. There's a host of variables. There were over 20 variables that they looked at. One of them was learning, and the training penetration is what we called it. The amount of training that people had in different types of training, functional, technical, industry, and soft skills. And they did their multivariate analysis. They looked at those variables for over 1,000 of our contracts. They took our largest clients, we call them diamond clients, looked at about 1,000 contracts that we had historically done with these companies. We looked at the profitable ones, the successful contracts, or the ones where profitability was at an acceptable level. And then based on that, we looked at all the people factors for people that had worked on those contracts. And what they were able to do with their multivariate analysis was really identify the key drivers for contract success. And this was all done, without our input. When I first saw that foundational analytics piece, it was clear to me, learning in this training penetration variable was in the top 3 variables that drove contract success. So now we had a real economic story. We had a story about the economic value that learning and the training was driving. What we then did was we took that foundational analytics and we said, well, what if we can use it to predict? And what if we can use it as sort of a health or a scorecard for our clients, for our client teams? And come to them with a scorecard that basically says, based on our analytics, to the degree that you've got a certain level of training penetration in technical, functional, soft skills, or industry, your projects may be at risk. Our analytics say that as the training penetration goes up, you're more likely to have a profitable contract. And if it's below a certain threshold, your project's at risk. And what was interesting is that language, that risk language, actually resonated with the business leaders. They were used to dealing with risk all the time, different kinds of risks. But when the learning people showed up with some data that said, look, we have a new category of risk that you need to pay attention to. It's basically, are your people skilled and have they been trained sufficiently? And so now we weren't just HR fighting the good fight and getting people to training. We were HR using analytics to say, we've identified some potential risk that you really should know about and take action on. And that's really helped us. It helped the dialogue with not just the HR people at our client accounts, but the commercial directors of these big accounts. And so they're very interested in this, and we're working with them now to use that kind of scorecard and that prediction in ways that, in their words, they're like, this is nice that you bring me this risk profile in the middle of a contract. Can we do something where I don't staff people unless they've been properly trained or fully trained? Can we move up the supply chain, up the talent supply chain, and really give them a view of the health of I'll say the health, but the readiness of the teams that they're going to bring. And so I think that's where we're going, is using analytics to get smarter about having this dialogue about risk and impact with the business, and then of course driving those, driving the learning, driving those competencies so that we're reducing the risk for our business. All right, so I think we do have time for questions.